Okay, so we're diving into some pretty heavy stuff today. We're talking about war and, get this, the will to live. Sounds kind of impossible when you put it like that, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
We're looking at a chapter from The Future Head, a book by Werdeng Luith. He's a South Sudanese refugee who really gets into the thick of the ongoing crisis back in his home country.
This is really personal for him too, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, it hits close to home. His own brother was killed in that 2013 conflict.
Right.
And he doesn't shy away from that at all. One of the first lines in the chapter is, long suffering and no ending soon. You can just feel the weight of what he's talking about.
Yeah, he doesn't just give you the surface level stuff either.
No, not at all.
He's going deeper, saying, look, if you really want to understand this, you got to look past the obvious. He even says, the problem is more profound than one issue, which I think really sets the tone for how he's approaching this whole analysis.
For sure.
Like, you have to understand the history here, you know. We're talking about a long, long fight for independence from Sudan in the north.
Right, right.
And that conflict has had this ripple effect, shaping how people think, almost setting the stage for these cycles of violence that we're seeing even now.
So it's almost like winning independence. It was just the first battle in this much longer, more complicated war.
Exactly, and one they weren't really ready for, you know? And that lack of preparation, combined with, let's be honest, the trauma of war,
Yeah.
it created what Luith calls this military mindset, this idea that problems are solved through force, not through, you know, talking or working together.
It's like the only tools they have are weapons.
Yeah, it's like their go-to, and you can imagine what that does to a society when that's always at the forefront.
Yeah.
Affects everything, how people talk to each other, how leaders govern.
So it's not even just about ending one specific war. It's about changing how a whole society thinks and acts.
It's huge.
That feels almost impossible.
It's massive. And what makes it even more complicated is this other thing Luith talks about, this clash between the traditional ways of life and what it takes to build a modern nation, right?
Oh, yeah, he talks about that.
He brings up this cattle keeper mindset where your allegiance is to your tribe, your herds, which for generations made perfect sense.
It's how they survived.
Right. But now you're trying to create a unified country, and it's not so easy.
Not so simple.
No. You need that shared identity, that sense of belonging to something bigger. It creates this friction.
Right. It's like trying to fit two completely different pieces together.
Exactly.
It's like trying to build something new while still holding on to the old.
Totally. And Luith argues that one of the places where this clash is super obvious is in South Sudan's education system.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so how does that fit in?
Well, he paints this picture of, like, universities where they don't even have textbooks.
Wow.
Really? Yeah, it's wild. Education almost seems like more of a social thing than about, you know, gaining knowledge and learning how to think critically.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Big time. He even points out, out of the top 500 ranked universities in Africa,
Yeah.
none, not a single one is in South Sudan.
That's pretty telling.
Yeah, it kind of speaks for itself.
It's like they're trying to move forward without the very thing that makes moving forward possible. Right.
Like trying to run before you can walk.
Exactly.
Luith's argument is that this whole education gap, it just keeps feeding the cycle of instability. Because if people aren't equipped to think for themselves, to really analyze things, then how can they participate in a democracy? And how can they hold their leaders accountable? It's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, so we've got this military mindset, this clash of traditional and modern, and now a struggling education system. It's a lot.
It's heavy stuff.
Does Luith offer anything hopeful? Like, what's the way out of this?
So he has this idea. It's kind of radical when you think about it. He calls it his citizenship form.
A citizenship form. Okay, I've never heard of that.
Right. So imagine this. It's a process where people actually sit down and assess their own skills, talents, you name it. And then they take it a step further and think, okay, how can I use this to help my country?
Oh, interesting. So instead of just complaining or waiting for someone else to fix things,
Exactly.
you're taking responsibility.
Ownership. Because for Luith, that's where real change starts.
It's a cool idea, but does it really work, though? I mean, especially in a place like South Sudan. We've got so much going on.
He's not naive to the situation, that's for sure. He's very upfront about the fact that South Sudan is really on the brink. Like, it could go either way.
Yeah.
And he even ties it to the environment, which is interesting. He's saying that because they haven't been taking care of their natural resources, it's created a whole other set of problems.
But they're fighting on multiple fronts at the same time.
Exactly. And so this citizenship form, it's not just some idealistic concept. It's about survival at this point.
Wow.
He's calling for people to really step up and claim their future.
So it's about taking ownership, even when things seem impossible. I like that.
It's a tall order, for sure. And I think Lewis knows that. He doesn't shy away from the tough questions either. Like, he actually challenges people to really think about, what does a good country even look like? You know,
big question.
Huge. What are the ingredients of a government that actually works? Because it'd be easy to just point fingers, right?
Oh, for sure. Blame it on someone else, yeah.
Right. Blame colonialism, blame outside forces. But Lewis pushing for something way deeper. He wants people to look inward a little bit.
So it's about more than just fixing the problems in front of you. It's about examining the whole system.
Totally. It's about South Sudan figuring out its own identity, its values, and what it really wants for the future. And then once they've done that internal work, taking action. It's a call to action, but it starts with looking in the mirror.
Wow. It's a powerful message. It makes you wonder, what would I do if I were trying to rebuild South Sudan?
Right. Where do you even start?
It's overwhelming to even think about.
It is. But it's also a question that I think we should all be asking ourselves no matter where we live. These issues, conflict, inequality, our changing climate, they're global.
That's true.
And Lewis' message, it reminds us that we all have a part to play in building a better future. It's not just on governments or big organizations. It's on each and every one of us.
So it's about finding that citizenship form for yourself.
Exactly. What skills, what knowledge do you have that you can use to make a difference? It might be small, but every little bit counts.
I love that. Lewis would be proud. Well, on that note, for anyone listening who wants to dive deeper into this, definitely check out Wording Lewis' book, The Future Ahead. It's a powerful read, and who knows, it might just inspire you to make a change in your own corner of the world.